That's funny you say that, because that was actually one of my largest struggles when I signed up for the Enlifted program myself. And it was my patience that I was concerned with, or I saw as my struggle, which I've now reframed as my golden opportunity. Whatever you're struggling with, it can be anything, doesn't matter what it is. If you're struggling with something, that is equally your opportunity to improve. So when I reframe it as my opportunity, now I start looking for opportunities to work on that thing. And so what that looked like for me specifically, especially with my daughter, is having more real conversations with her when we're just alone. Recently, this is just like 4 or 5 days ago.
Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith, and if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast and you want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There is a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links down below. However, before you do that, my friend, I'd like you to stick around for the one, the only Kevin Woo.
I feel like that was a boxing intro.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. Also a fellow maritimer from the same province as myself, which is just kind of cool. It just goes to show how small the world is, and we can be on opposite sides of the country, but also have so much in common right off the bat. Man, very cool. So, friend, I like to always start the podcast off with a question. And the question is, Kevin, how is it that you impact the lives of the people around you?
Wow, that's a good question, Kyle. And it's funny that you asked that, because I often ponder that myself frequently, because it is what continues to drive me to continue to do what I do. So I've been a CrossFit gym owner for 15 years plus now, and I influence others by showing them what's possible within themselves. Oftentimes when people come to me, they have all of these walls and boundaries up around them, oftentimes mental. And through coaching and interaction, I can influence them to get them to do things that they never thought possible. And when that happens, we celebrate the crap out of it, which then motivates them to keep coming back for more and more and more. It's an addictive process, both for myself and for the people that I work with.
I like thinking that motivation is a side effect of effort, not the catalyst of change. So when you said that, whereas a celebration of wins, people are more encouraged and motivated to maintain that perpetual state of progress rather than waiting for motivation to fall on their lap. And then suddenly they have the catalyst where they're like, you know what? Now I'm finally motivated to change things up. How is it that you've been able to influence folks to bypass that desire to wait for motivation and to instead to attack their desires head on?
Yeah, there's the typical path that people believe, and you really you led up to this. It's people generally start with, they need to be inspired. Once they're inspired, they're motivated. And once they're motivated, they take action. It's really, you start from the other side. You start with action. Once you've created that action and you win, you're then inspired and motivated to continue doing those actions. So just having that conversation and say, the starting point is actually doing something. And the way I have it set up in not just fitness, but also nutrition and mindset, is start out with some early wins. Make something so ridiculously easy where they walk away and they say, oh my God, well, that's not going to be that hard. Well, that's the point. It shouldn't be that hard. So we have a system at our gym at CrossFit Moncton where we assess everybody when they first come in. And part of the process is we find out what their current levels are or abilities in all these different tests or assessments. By the time they leave session one, they will have received 6 virtual trophies. When they enter it into their little app, this massive trophy and fireworks pops up on their phone. I say, man, you're going to get a lot of trophies today. And you can see the smile on their face. As adults, when's the last time they received a trophy for anything? It's very rare. It rarely happens. And so when you can provide them with that, even if it's virtual, it's just on the screen. We don't actually give them a trophy or anything yet. It's so motivating. And they're like, wow, I want to get all of them. It's like Pokemon. You got to collect them all. And so at the end of our little on-ramp system, they will have achieved 15 different trophies, and they feel really damn good to keep going because they want to level up. They want to get to that next level.
I really like that, dude.
Yeah.
What have you, just because I'm curious and maybe someone that's listening to this could benefit, what do you think would be a trophy or 3 trophies that someone could implement today to start to propel themselves towards where they want to go? If it was like something that you're like, yep, you can do this today, go for it. If you don't mind sharing, of course.
Yeah, good question. So I'll step back a little bit. I'm about resiliency. That's kind of like my thing. And I believe there are 3 pillars to being a resilient human. Those 3 things are fitness, nutrition, and mindset. So I'll give you an example from each one. So in fitness, if you want to get started, the first thing to do is get outside and start walking. That's it. It's the easiest, freest thing that you can do that's going to impact not just your physical state, but also your mental state. So when you can do that and do that consistently well, you're going to feel better. And again, inspired and motivated to do the next thing, whatever that is. It might be jogging, running, joining a gym, signing up for a race, climbing a mountain, who knows? But if you can start with getting outside and walking, step 1. When it comes to nutrition, one of 2 things. 1, just start taking a multivitamin, or 2, start drinking more water. Both of those things, while small, will have a large impact on you because all you're doing is creating more consistency. When you are consistent with a habit and you can see yourself winning at that thing, you're more likely to try the next hardest thing. It might be getting more protein in your diet or adding more veggies or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as what you're doing consistently. And then for mindset, that can go in a lot of different directions. I would say the easiest one to do would be to start writing down your thoughts. Pick up a pen, pencil, and just start writing things down with no intention of what's going to come out. And that's the best part. It's just free writing. So I would encourage people to do it after a walk. When you go out for a walk, don't put headphones on. Don't listen to music. Just go out and be. And then when you get back, just pick up a pen and start writing. Write down what you thought about. You might have questions that popped up while you were out walking. Write those questions down with no intention of answering them. Doesn't matter. But just get those thoughts out of your head. When you do that, I talk about mindset, or we'll say victim mentality, as having marbles stuck in your head. So if you have a dryer, like a clothes dryer at home, and you shove a bunch of marbles into it and turn it on, that's the equivalent of keeping all of those negative thoughts in your head. How damaging, how loud, how chaotic would that be to turn your dryer on with a bunch of marbles in it? Like it's such a odd experience. Well, each one of those marbles is those negative thoughts that are in your head. And you have the ability to push pause, take one marble out, analyze, not even analyze, but just notice it and say, what is this? Write it down. Now that marble's out of your head. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to carry it around with you anymore. So that's my other suggestion would be to just pick up a pen and start writing things down.
Nice. I believe it is Jim Rohn that says, "When you think it, ink it."
Yeah,
And
that's a good one.
I really like that one. I like the flow of it. It's a little bit of the poetic side of things on that one. That's sweet, dude. I really like the is it a metaphor or an analogy? I really like the idea of having, or the idea of the marbles being the thoughts and the washer dryer being, or the dryer being the mind.
Yeah,
That's a really good one. I'm definitely going to put that in my back pocket, and I'm going to borrow that, and I'm
do
going
it.
to use it.
Steal it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't have very
Absolutely.
many. I usually steal ideas, and that's one of my originals. Like I don't, I just came up with that, and actually, I use that in my speech that I give, and I'll have marbles in my pocket, and so it's more powerful when they actually see it. And I slam it down on the table in front of me or the podium in front of me, and they're like, "Whoa!" There's you can just feel the quietness. And when I ask people, like we do a visualization process when I talk about it, and when they close their eyes I walk them through it like, okay, you're in your laundry room, pick up that bucket of marbles, put them in, close the door, push the on button. What do you feel? What do you sense? And you can see everybody has their eyes closed and you can see their faces. They can't, but I can see their faces and they're all like scrunched up and I get them to open their eyes and I say, what went on? And somebody goes, you owe me a new dryer. But they're like they all say the same things: chaos, loud, destruction. I'm like, yeah, those are your thoughts. Those are what your thoughts are doing to you. And then I pull out the marble and I say, you have the ability to take it out of your head, hold the marble up to my head, and then put it on the table. Say you write that shit down, and it's a very powerful visualization tool.
I like that.
Yeah,
If so, once that marble's taken out, and once that marble's put down, what does the marble turn into?
yeah. So once you've identified it or you identify what that is, you ask the question: is there anything I can do about that? If the answer is yes, great. Now you have an action item. Do something. What is it that you can do about it? If the answer is no, well, you got the marble out of your head and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't need to put that back in your head again because it's out of your control. So that's it. What can I do about it? That's the only question you need to ask to get the marble out and to then do something about it or not.
Hmm, I like that. I like that a lot. Before we were recording, I was asking you about your resilient humans, well, banner that's behind you, and I couldn't see it was a microphone. It is a microphone in the U,
Looks just
but
like your microphone.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, that's pretty legit. Now I'm like, wow, it was literally in front of me. How could I not figure this out? The answer was right here.
Right in front of your face.
But then you also have the plant that's coming out of the tea. And you shared a little story of resilience now, and it was just like a little snippet, but what does the plant have to do with resilience at all?
Yeah. So I've now interviewed a few dozen individuals, that either people that have gone through something that other people would deem them to be a resilient human, or coaches that help other people become resilient. And every time I interview people, I always ask them, "What is your definition of resiliency? What is it?" And not a single person has said the same thing, which I find very fascinating. And so I never really had a definition prior to starting my own podcast. It was more of like discovery. And that's what you mentioned to me prior to recording this is you're coming into this with that sense of curiosity. You just want to figure out and ask questions and same for me as well. And I've now developed, I guess, two different views of resiliency. One, it's the typical, bouncing back after doing hard things, or more adapted, growing through hard things. And so that's where that plant kind of comes from. The other side of it is the vulnerability piece and being okay with not being okay, being open to sharing your struggles, your downfalls, your moments where things aren't going perfectly as planned, which is a lot of the time, right? Nothing ever goes perfect. Um, so balancing those two, I kind of see that those as two ends of the spectrum, being strong, hard, rigid, but also having that soft, vulnerable side. And so prior to starting this podcast, we were at my gym and we had people running out the back door, and the landlord had just repaved the entire back parking lot. And over time, we noticed there was this one weed basically that was growing through the asphalt. Like, how is that even possible? My wife kills plants and it has like the perfect pH level and the water level, like everything's perfect, and it still dies in the house. Yet this weed can grow in the middle of a parking lot with minimal sun. It's not the right conditions and it's still coming through. I was like, that weed's resilient. And it's kind of how the whole thing here was born. I was like, that's what describes us as CrossFitters, as people, members of my gym. We intentionally put ourselves through hard things. We put ourselves in environments and situations where growth is the byproduct. It's not so much the goal. The goal is really the process. It's the process of going through those hard things. That's the actual goal. It's not like I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to lift 50 pounds more or whatever. Those are like, yeah, we'll get there, but what are you going to become in the pursuit of those goals? That's really the goal, and that's what I feel is a truly resilient human.
Focusing on the inputs rather than the outcome, and by
Correct.
having the inputs, then you can make data-driven decisions, but from a place of, there's like a in my mind at least, when I'm hearing you say it, it's like there's a the there's a calmness in the there's a presence in the inputs, and then the outcome happens as a side effect, which is just the bonus.
Yeah.
And being able to focus on the activities rather than the outcome puts the person in a place of power, which also encourages folks to look at those activities as their daily wins, which I would definitely tie into what you were talking about with getting a bajillion trophies. Because actually, I totally kind of, I don't know if we live in a simulation or not, but I like the idea of like game theory, right? Where I'm a character, you're a character, like I'm your NPC for you being the main character, and I'm the main character for me, and you're my NPC. Or we're just um what are they called in video games? Like there's just the other person that's helping you along with the quest, right? And having the trophies, think like when you think of a video game and you're accomplishing even the menial tasks, where if it's Spider-Man 2 and you're actually flying or swinging and you get the longest duration swing or something like that.
Yeah.
That's something that is a part of the game, and people don't consciously think, oh, I'm going to try to aim for this particular goal. It just kind of happens as a byproduct of the activity. And with those, we build up more XP points and we level up. And yeah, that's pretty freaking sweet, dude. That's a lot of trophies, man. You're getting your folks to get a lot of trophies in, dude.
Yeah, man. We often talk about the difference between process goals and outcome goals. No knocking on them, but outcome goals are cool. Like I climbed this mountain or I won this thing, whatever it is, right? I lost this amount of pounds. Cool. That's an outcome goal. The the only way to reach it is to set up process goals along the way. So what are those? It's about being consistent in your pursuit of that outcome. So if it's to, lift a certain weight, then how many days per week do you need to show up to the gym in order to do that? Well, that's your process. That's what has to happen. If you're, it's the old quote, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's not 7 apples in one day.
Mm.
That's not how it works. You have to spread those apples out. And that's the process. You can't just be a flexible human by stretching one day. You have to do a little bit every day. And so when you put more of your attention and effort into the process, the outcomes will happen. They will literally take care of themselves. And if not, if you don't reach the outcome by a certain time, keep going until completion. There's nothing that, unless it's like a specific event, there's nothing that says you have to stop. Like health and fitness and your nutrition, there's no end game. Those continue on until the last breath that you take. So keep going. That's it. Process
Nice.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I used to be very more prone to fantasizing the outcome more so than implementing those processes. And I can say for myself, at least, it was frustrating as fuck. It was frustrating as fuck.
Yeah.
So, how have you found to be the have you found that there it could be a common denominator or a skeleton key of the mind that unlocks that narrative where folks are focused on the outcome, but then you try to influence a pivot towards process focus or
Yeah.
encourage that?
100%. It's a different process that I use, called the goal setting pyramid. At the top is your target. And it has to be something that you can like check off. Like I've accomplished this. It can't be, I just want to be healthy. That doesn't have, like, when will you know that you're there? You'll just wake up one day and be like, today I'm healthy and yesterday I wasn't. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So pick a metric that you can measure and check off when that happens. The next piece is your identity component. And I ask, what does it say about you if and when you accomplish that target or that goal? And then the answer has to be, I am, and then fill in the blank, whatever that is. I am driven. I am resilient. I am successful. What doesn't matter. Whatever you come up with, it's going to mean something for you. And then the last piece of the pyramid is the action plan. And the action plan is set up into, I call it the 2-2-2 system. What can you do in the next 2 days? What can you do in the next 2 weeks? And what can you do in the next 2 months to get closer to your target? And you review that cycle every 2 days. So if you've accomplished all your 2-day things, now you can start pulling from your 2-week list and start chucking those into your 2-day plans. And once all your 2-week things are gone, you can start pulling from your 2-month plan. The 2-month thing is kind of like a bigger, more like a large project-based things that you can then break down into smaller tasks and chuck into your 2-day things. But generally, people will always know what they're doing today and tomorrow. But if we go too far from that, it becomes too abstract. I don't know. I might be away. I don't know. My kid might get sick. Generally, the next 2 days what's going to happen in your life. And so you can always plan ahead for 2 days. That's why the 2-2-2 system works well. Once we have those written down, or we've identified those, I then go over with my clients, what percentage of time do you spend on each corner of that pyramid? So of the target, how much time and effort is spent looking at the target? I'll get you to guess. What percentage of time?
Per day or just in
Until you
general?
until you reach that target.
Ooh, okay. So how much time percentage wise?
Do you
Ah,
spend looking at the target?
for myself, let's say 80%.
Interesting. I tell my clients it's 1%.
Oh, fair enough.
1% because it's the outcome. If Yeah, I see it's
Yeah,
happening, right?
it
The wheels are
clicks.
spinning now. Oh, okay, now yeah, I get it. You spend 1% of your time looking at the target. It's like it's kind of it like in the rear view mirror. You just kind of glance back. Yep, yep, still there. That's good. I'm on target. I'm on the right path. How much of the time is spent focused on the identity component?
Now I'm gonna be a little. I'm gonna go with 2%.
Yeah, like I say 4%. So 1% on the target, about 4% on the identity, which leaves how much for the actions?
94 to 96%.
95%, right? The overwhelming majority of your time is spent in the doing, the actions. And you revisit those action items every 2 days to keep you on track so that you are good at getting closer to your target as you go. That's the system, the goal setting pyramid, man. It works way better. I did a whole podcast episode on this, but why I hate SMART goals. They're too abstract. It's too far out. And this dials it back a bit so that you're focused on what you're doing today and tomorrow. That's it. And then after tomorrow, you redo the whole process over again until you've accomplished your task or your target.
That's really cool. Actually, I'm going to refer to that aha moment as a full-on coaching moment. Like I received that in my mind as a coaching moment because with my answer being 80% of focusing on the target, that's what a majority of people that wouldn't be accomplishing that target would probably be focusing on.
Correct.
So when you shifted it to 1% and then 2 to 4% or 5%, and then the action plan being 95%, that makes way more sense. And I wrote it down here, and now that I'm visually seeing it,
Yeah.
man, that was
The visual is powerful. It's like,
yes,
oh my God, yeah.
absolutely.
That's where all the money is in the actions.
Yeah.
Yes. We talked about that earlier. It's action first, inspiration, motivation. You continue the action. It's a loop. It just keeps
Yes.
going. And so every 2 days, you check off your action items. Damn, I feel motivated. I'm going to keep doing more actions. That's momentum.
Damn. Yeah, and then suddenly it's that triangle is just piercing through the timeline of progress, you know? That's cool.
Yeah,
Thank you for
man.
sharing that one. That was fantastic.
Yeah, no problem.
Bam. Um, with ooh, what sort of mm, do you have mental frameworks that have actually no. What is a mental framework that you have either adopted or created and took into yourself into the character of Kevin Wood that you can share?
I was hoping you'd ask this.
Perfect. Yeah.
This one, it's my own adaptation based on choice theory by Dr. William Glasser. It's been a cornerstone of my own development and my own life. I've read the book like 5 or 6 times now. Um, you don't even have to read the whole thing. Like just read chapters 1 through 5. That's all you need to get everything that you need to know about it. But one of the things it talked about and that I've kind of adapted as my own now is where does conflict come from? And that's conflict with other people and conflict within yourself. And in all of our minds, there are two worlds that exist. There's what we have as reality. This is the true stuff that is happening around us, our circumstances and the situation. And then the other world is our expectations world, also known as our quality world. When those two worlds are aligned or closely aligned, sunshine and rainbows, my friend. Like everything's great. But the further those two worlds go apart, that's when conflict happens. That's when you really feel, for instance, the easiest example is road rage. I expect to get from point A to point B in this amount of time, but traffic or that a-hole down the street that cut me off is preventing me from doing so. So my expectation of getting there in a certain time has been blocked by the reality of this traffic jam or this a-hole that's blocking me. Road rage erupts. There's your conflict. But if you drive to work and it's the exact expectation that you had, reality matches expectations, no road rage. Sunshine and rainbows, we're there on time. Just knowing that those two worlds exist can change your relationship with yourself and with others. For instance, if you have children, you may have an expectation, again, of getting somewhere at a certain time, but your child throws a wrench into that plan and says, I'm going to throw up before I leave the house, or I just shit my pants, or whatever it is. They take their time, they fumble. I can tie my shoes myself. Okay, now you're running late. You have a choice. Can you change your reality? You could tie your kids' shoes for them. You could pick them up and throw them in the car and just squeal away. Or you can change your expectations. I'm going to be a little bit late now. Take a breath, accept that new expectation, and it will slowly creep closer to your reality. And that's when you'll relieve that conflict or that inner conflict that you're having. So those are my two worlds, reality, expectations, and the closer you can bring them together, the more happy you will live.
Yeah, I like that. Because then you go with the microverse, the internal. I put it as microverse, macroverse, internal, external. I like that. I think that's really cool. So choice theory, William Glasser.
Yeah.
Sick. Another kind of concept that I like, or a framework that I like as well, when it comes to experiences or expectations, it's the frame of the veteran, where if you experience the exact same thing a thousand times, you're probably going to be used to it by that thousandth time. So why explode and behave in a way that is not congruent with the person that you want to be? And when I find that when there is that just that reframe where it's no longer the expectations that are ruling us, it creates more of a flow of existence. There's a lot more it's a lot smoother. It's a lot smoother. And when things are smoother, rather than getting ourselves worked up, then we can actually think clearer. We're not stressing ourselves out, even though we believe the circumstances are what's stressing ourselves out, but they're actually inspiring us rather than causing us to behave in a certain way that we're choosing to behave.
Give me an example of that in practical use.
So one would be, for the frame of the veteran, one would be the traffic one was a really good idea. Okay, I'll come up with a different one because I don't want to steal yours because you just did it. So if I were to be recording a podcast and the Wi-Fi closed out, rather than getting flustered, let's say it was the thousandth time that the Wi-Fi cut out. Okay, rather than folding my computer up and throwing it at the wall and having a hissy fit, I just say, whoa, no. If this was the thousandth time I've handled this, that I've actively handled it, then I'm just going to be a little bit delayed. Having some computer issues. I hope that's okay. If you want to reschedule, then that's all good too. But allowing that grace, I suppose. It would be having that grace to not react. It's to be able to respond. That's how I would probably put it as. So that would probably be my example. I wouldn't throw my computer. I would probably shoot someone a message or shoot you a message and say, hey man, this is it. Because I think It would be relieving ourselves of the pressure of someone else getting ticked off. I think that more people are more compassionate and resonate with shenanigans like that. So it's like, oh yeah, no worries. Like it's okay. Like it's not the end of the world. And I like this one where if it's an emergency, dial 911, everything else can wait.
It's true.
You know?
I say that to my daughter often.
Yeah.
Do you need me to call 911? No, that's fine then. It'll pass.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. Early winners
I find
panic.
what that reminded me of something else is if you have recognized that you react consistently in a certain way that you want to change, then you need to perform what's called a pattern interruption.
Mm.
One of those things, and we learned this in lifted, is called goody goody gumdrops. So when something bad happens, you say that out loud, like, okay, you get caught in traffic, goody goody gumdrops. You can't be upset after saying that. It's not possible. It just changes everything because it's not the typical reaction that you would normally give in that situation. So you change it. You interrupt that pattern that you've built up over time.
Mm.
Jocko says this as well. When something bad happens, good,
Mm.
good. What lesson can I learn from this right now or down the road? Whatever it is, good. I like using that one now. Something doesn't go my way, good. I'm going to learn something from that. No such thing as failure. It's just a lesson. And it might come to you later, but there's a lesson in all failures.
Absolutely. I like thinking of FAIL as an acronym for a faithful attempt in learning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the other one, fail forward.
Mm-hmm. And
It's
fail
just,
often.
yeah, fail fast too, right? Because then
And just
it's
keep
you learn
failing.
from it. Yeah.
It's just our existence is just an accumulation of making better decisions after we've failed over and over and over and over again.
I
We
would,
just refine how we fall on our face.
yes. Yeah. How graceful it looks afterwards. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. I would not be where I am today had it have not been for all of my failures. And there have been many. So absolutely
Absolutely.
agree. Yeah.
How do you find so obviously we're both really cool at failing. Many people are not cool at failing. And I think that folks will prevent themselves from even having a chance just for or I'll give a better example. So a client resistant to tracking their food, not because of the food, not because of the tracking itself, it's because of the narrative and the story that they don't want to look dumb. How is it that you found or find, or any insights that you have on being able to pivot that internal resistance so that they can make way for the better version of themselves?
Great question, Kyle. It comes through a perspective shift. We look at, and I asked them to put on the mindset of a scientist. You're going to put a lab coat on and your spectacles or whatever, and have your microscope all there and ready to go. What does a scientist look for? They look for clues and patterns, and they just want to discover. All scientists have a mindset of curiosity. They have an idea, a hypothesis of what might happen, but then all that data collection is just going to give us data to work from. And then, in which case, then you can have a conclusion to do something different. And so, if my nutrition clients are struggling with that, we put on our scientist hat or our scientist lab coat, and we go into those things as let's just try it. What's the worst that could happen? So let's just do it for the next 3 days. Could you do that for 3 days? I'm not saying forever, because oftentimes they have that expectation like, oh, if he's asking me to track my food, that's something that I'm going to have to do all the time forever. That's unrealistic. That's not how you're supposed to live your life. I just want to collect data for 3 days and see what comes out. And when they have that cognitive shift, that little perspective shift, oh yeah, I could do that for 3 days. Cool. Then it usually leads to more. They're like, well, that wasn't actually so hard. Crazy, right? They just needed it to be shrunken down to be a smaller start. If you start too big, people get prevented from starting in the first place. Can you do that for me for the next 3 days? Yeah, no problem. Great. Then we reconvene, look at the data. What can we decide from there? And then we come up with action items after that.
I like that. Yeah, it makes sense. That's cool. Just shorten it. Just keep on. It's actually not zooming out. It's zooming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, but also being able to have that perspective so that you still have the perspective or the vantage point of this is the trajectory to go on, but zooming into the point of building up the competence, and the competence leads to confidence.
That's right.
Nice.
Consistency. You got to start. It's that first step. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So what is the first bite? Well, if it's tracking food, let's track for 3 days. See how that goes. Cool.
Nice. Yeah. I've been using, instead of the elephant analogy, I've been using a tomahawk steak. You don't just grab it by the bone and just mow it down in one bite. You chop that thing up. You chop
Yeah.
that thing up. Put some garlic butter on it. It's good.
Savor it.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. Um, with actually, how have you been able to implement, if at all, these concepts and what you're talking about today in the form of being a father?
Wow. Yeah. That's funny you say that, because that was actually one of my largest struggles when I signed up for the Enlifted program myself.
Hmm.
And it was my patience that I was concerned with, or I saw as my struggle, which I've now reframed as my golden opportunity. Whatever you're struggling with, it can be anything, doesn't matter what it is. If you're struggling with something, that is equally your opportunity to improve. So when I reframe it as my opportunity, now I start looking for opportunities to work on that thing. And so what that looked like for me specifically, especially with my daughter, is having more real conversations with her when we're just alone. Recently, this is just like 4 or 5 days ago. Um, we have trouble at nighttime, bedtime routine, just fighting tooth and nail. Just get in the goddamn shower. You stink. You need to shower, right? And so I just had this conversation with her. I was like, it was a challenge because she's very challenge driven. I was like, can we go like 7 days without having any fights at nighttime? I shrunk it down for her, right? Before it was like, if I just asked her, can we never fight again? Well, that's forever. That's not going to happen. But the next 7 days for her is very manageable. And we were out in the woods this morning. We had the four-wheeler out in the woods. And she asked me, she goes, it's been a pretty good 4 days, hasn't it? Yes, it has. She goes, why do you think that is? I go, because we're getting along, we're talking to each other, we're doing things like this together. She goes, yeah, I really like it. Great. That's that was it. But that all started from a little 7 day challenge. Can we go 7 days? Yeah, I think we can do that. And so that's when I step back, and again, it goes back to that reality and expectation thing. I expect her to go to bed at a certain time. She, as in reality, dictates otherwise. What do I have control over? Well, I'm not going to physically chuck her in the shower and hose her down. That doesn't make any sense. So the only other option I have is to change my expectation over that situation. Okay, it's going to be later bedtime tonight. What can I do about it? Nothing. It is what it is. I'm going to breathe through this, and we're going to wake up tomorrow and it's a brand new day. So, yeah,
Very cool. How old is your kiddo?
she just turned 10.
Oh, double digits. Fair enough.
Yeah, 10
Very
going on
cool.
16.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool. That's neat. Um, mm, has yeah. Mm, okay. This is kind of a cool one. Since we're on the idea of a familial part, how has your what has your wife commented on the changes that she's observed in you while making
100%.
these shifts?
Yep. She noticed it almost immediately. She's like, you're not the same. You're a different person. I can see your mind shifting. It's like, that's cool. So she came down. She had never seen one of my speeches. And just a couple months ago, she came down to St. John with me when I did a speech down there. And she's like, wow, that, like, she heard pieces of it, right? Like, I would practice and stuff with her. Um, but she saw it, the full thing in its entirety, and she was blown away. She's like, it's crazy to see how far you've come since I first met you. And she said, when I first met you, obviously I was amazed with what I saw because I married you, but the growth that I've gone through over the last, 12, 13 years since we've been together. Yeah, she's definitely noticed, and she's noticed my attempt at building a better relationship with my daughter as well. Um, it's not easy. It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be a struggle and a challenge. But again, I see that more as a process versus an outcome. There's no outcome when it comes to having a relationship with my daughter. Like, there's no target where I can say, like, I accomplished this and I can check it off the list. It will always be a process. And part of that process is going through struggles and also celebrating the wins. Today was a great fucking win for me and her and us. It was amazing. Um, and even my wife, I said, enjoy the quiet while I'm away. So we work together. And part of this, as a relationship with her, my wife, we've set up these, I don't want to call them rules. They're just guidelines, I guess. We make sure that once a month we just have a her and I date. Like, we go out and do something where it's just her and I. That's like it's a non-negotiable. I also have it so that once a month I do something with my daughter, with just me and her. And then we also do once a month where it's all three of us do go out and do something fun. So that's actually tonight. Um, they have a Christmas light show at the zoo here. And so we're all going out to that tonight. And that's going to be obviously Christmas is coming up too. That's obviously a family activity, but this is something where we get out of the house and actually experience it with each other. So those are kind of our three non-negotiables. And then we set those up every month.
Mm. I have something that I call as my own little principles or foundation, the 4 F's of fate. And it starts with fitness, then it moves to finance, then it moves to fellowship, then it moves to fulfillment. So fitness, both physical and mental fitness. Uh, Finance is, well, money you make or the debt that you're paying off. Fellowship is the people that you make space in your heart for, and fulfillment is the process of self-actualizing the best version of you, or transcending who you presently are for the person to make way for the person that you could be. Because I find that many times it's actually just us getting in our own way of becoming that person. How have you noticed or recognized a a balance between, or has this development on yourself sort of balanced out those four sort of pillars?
Yes, but at different times. I was not aware of these different concepts all at once. Fitness was actually the first thing for me. And I think that's true for quite a few people that I know that are into self-development. It often starts with fitness and then grows or branches off from there. I would say for me, it started with fitness, turned into fulfillment. I wanted to see what I could do. And so I would sign up for these crazy events and challenges and stuff just to put my not just physical fitness, but mental fitness into practice. What I don't do fitness just for the sake of doing it. I want to express it. And so that's where that fulfillment came in. The fellowship was when I started coaching other people in it and then seeing the change that I could have on people and the trajectory of their life. I often find it fun to look at when the direction. I don't know if you're familiar with like the Marvel universe and like
Oh yeah.
timelines, like branch timelines.
Yeah, buddy.
The moment when they start with me at the gym is a new branch timeline for them specifically. And if they were to continue on the timeline that they were on, where would that have taken them? And I often get my one-on-one clients to go back and think about that. If you stayed on that trajectory, where would you be now? And they'd be like, "Ooh, that's dark." Like that's I was going down to a dark, deep hole. I was like, and what changed since you started? And then it's, growth, personal development. They have a new mindset, which is amazing. And then the finance thing, that's within a few years that I've recently kind of figured out. I use a system for my business called Profit First. So it's like the envelope system where you put different amounts of money in these envelopes where they're just different bank accounts so that when bills come up, there's an envelope full of money for that thing. And so I do that for my personal life as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Profit First was it inspired by the book by Michael Malkowitz?
Malkovich. Yeah. Yeah.
Malkovich. There we go.
Yeah. I think
That's a
that's,
damn cool book, man.
yep.
I
Yep.
listened to the audiobook and I would definitely recommend that was it's a cool concept when it comes to the business aspect of things.
If anyone owns a business that's listening to this, that's a must read, like
Mm-hmm.
mandatory reading. If you get yourself set up with that, you know, for businesses, when tax time comes up, there's no worries. There's the account is already set up for it and has everything in it. So, and then you start over every year. So yeah,
Absolutely. I like how
mandatory.
that on the note of that book, I think that the book itself is such a cool, like a powerful reframe where it's encouraging rather than debilitating. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you pay yourself first, and then making sure that the allocations are set up appropriately. And
Yep.
then you have that system in place where it's just smooth sailing.
Yeah. I set out to find an accountant that knew that system and then got us all set up. So we review it. It's called Taps and Caps. We review those every year to make sure that those allocations are in the right amount and then make adjustments as needed. So
How totally selfish question. How is it that you found an accountant that was familiar with the profit first methodology, I suppose?
okay.
Because I
I
think that
actually,
that's completely new to me where someone is even remotely familiar with it. So I'm like
yeah,
very intrigued by that.
I had an accountant that I used that was not familiar with it and was dead set in his ways. So I had a friend that was also an accountant, and I said, I will hire you if you read this book. Took him a month, and then he goes, dude, that was mind blowing. He goes, I'm ready. So I was his guinea pig, and I've been with him for I don't know how many years now, quite a few years now. Um, so he learned the system for me, and then got all of his other clients on that system. So we were kind of the groundbreakers in this area.
Dude, I consider myself what I like to call a catalyst character. I think everyone has their own archetype. And I would definitely consider you a catalyst character because I can guarantee every damn business owner after that point is probably just like, thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, Kevin, is it like how do you sleep at night being so impactful for all these human beings?
Well, it's not like Scrooge McDuck on a pile of money, that's for sure. No.
Fair.
It's no, I like that you asked that. I'm gonna pull it out. Hold on. Where'd it go? I have it's here somewhere. I know it is. I have a binder, and it's every time somebody writes me a text or sends me a note or says anything that I've helped impact them in some way, shape, or form, I print it out and I put it in that binder. Because not every day is sunshine and rainbows. If you own a business, if you're an entrepreneur, it is a roller coaster with the highest of highs where everything is, this is amazing. I can't believe I haven't started this earlier, to the lowest of lows that you're looking on job banks at different jobs that you can get, because both of those things have happened to me personally. And so when I print those out and I'm having those low days, I just look through it and I re-recognize that I am having an impact and that what I do is important and it is valuable and it is meaningful, that it helps me to stay in the right mind frame to continue doing what I'm doing and to continue to grow and learn and fail forward and keep making progress. I believe in being a white belt for life.
Mm.
Continue to learn. One of my friends, Ryan, he was a former gym owner in Nova Scotia, and he said, "You have to be the most decorated trainer in all of the Maritimes because you've never stopped growing and learning. Like if it's not fitness, it's nutrition or mindset or like it goes on and on." And I believe that's one of the reasons, not the reason, but one of the reasons why I continue to educate, entertain, and inspire others, is because I'm perpetually learning new things and wanting to share that with as many people as I can. And I do that through my gym. I do it through my podcast. I do it through speeches. So any other way I can get those lessons and messages out, the better. And again, thank you for having me on your podcast, because again, it just helps spread even more knowledge and inspiration and maybe some action that others will take to create action in their own life.
Damn, dude. Fantastic. Well, I'm not gonna lie, you hit the head, the heart, and the intuition a couple times during this chunk of time.
Sweet.
So way to freaking drop some savage knowledge bombs, my man. We're gonna tie it up with the last two questions. But before those last two questions, is there anything that has to be said that hasn't been said yet?
Mm. I know. Okay, so this this might be true for business owners, but it can also be true for anybody. If you are feeling lost, or I call them floaters, people that just like they feel like they're floating and there's no real direction. Most businesses have a mission and vision and value statement. I want you to come up with one for you personally. What is your personal mission? And then what that does is it gives you direction. And anytime you have a decision that comes up, it makes deciding real freaking easy, Does it match up with my vision and my mission? If the answer is no, don't give it another second of thought. If the answer is yes, you're all in. Go for it. Right. So when I had the opportunity to sign up for Enlifted and go through their whole course and coaching process, is that going to help me build more resilient humans? It was a resounding yes. So it was a no-brainer to invest into that education because it's going to help me and it's going to help a ton of other people. So come up with your own mission and vision and your values so that it makes decisions in your life that much easier.
Nice. Kevin, my dude, I just want to recognize you on the knowledge bombs that you're dropping today. You got some good energy, you got some great vibes. I think the tactics and the frameworks that you're providing are only that much more powerful with you using it to be able to show up as the best version of yourself, not just for your business, but also for your family and the people around you. And I think that that's pretty awesome. It's admirable. It's badass. And I'm excited to see where the trajectory takes you. It's going to be this is a good timeline, man.
Appreciate that, Kyle. Thanks.
For sure. So the final two questions that I like to ask. First one, to set the context. It is the end of your days. Podcast doesn't exist. No content exists. You're on your deathbed, surrounded by the people that you care for. What is the one piece of advice that you want to pass on before you kick the bucket?
Hmm. It's funny. A few things came up, but one was louder than the others. I want, I don't know why I'm getting emotional over this. That's crazy. It's a good question. I want everybody to ask the question, how can I help? If you go into your days, your relationships with that question in mind, how can I help? How much better will the world be? It there's no other option other than better. It has to be better. How can I help? So if you have a wife, a husband, a mother, a father, a child, a coworker, a gym friend, doesn't matter. How can I help you today? I guarantee that you're going to make their day better.
Nice. Dude, that's awesome. And then the final one, I'm glad we got you feeling the feels on that one because this next one hits people hard. So, the very best version of you, the Kevin Wood that you envision as being the no holds bar, most resilient version of yourself, is sitting next to you right now. What piece of advice, or in that badass couch that you have behind you, what piece of advice does he have for you for this season of your life?
The only thing holding you back is you. That's true for everybody. The only thing that's holding you back is you. It's not your circumstances. It's not your financials. It's it's you. You are holding you back. And if that is true, that means that you are also the solution. You are the problem and you are the solution. Nobody else is the solution. You create your opportunities. The only reason I'm on this podcast is because I asked for the opportunity. And what a great opportunity it has been. You create your own opportunities to get out of your own way and to thrive. in any direction that you want to go. That's what they would tell me.
There.
And that's what I've been telling myself. I feel like it feels so real and it's right there. Yeah. Just do it. Just do it. Take away
Nice.
just do it.
There you
Do
go.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, folks, that's what I've got for you in today's episode. Where can people find you, Kevin?
I'm on the socials, mostly just Instagram, Facebook. Instagram, it's CF Coach _ Kevin. You can hear me on my podcast, Resilient Humans. We're on every podcast platform that's out there. I also have a website, ifixyourmindset.com. If you wanted a free discovery call, you just go on there, book me for there. I also have a free ebook on there as well that talks about mindset and what it is, and then the practical things that you can do to change your mindset. I know we didn't really dive into that, but my definition of mindset is different than the dictionary definition. But when you take the word mind, set mind, it's actually not true. When you think of something that's set, it's like a foundation. It's unmoving. It doesn't change or shift. So we don't use that word. We don't use that terminology. So a mindset needs to be changing and malleable, and you can modify it. And so it's the mindset is the stories that you tell yourself to yourself, and you have the ability to change that by changing your words. And that's what I help people with, is identifying the words that they're using and then choosing to use different ones.
Dude, I love that. Well, folks, if you love today's episode, please, which I don't know how you couldn't, but please do me a favor right now and take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories and tag me with my handle at DapperDudeKyle, along with at CF Coach _Kevin. Sorry. That is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, keep up the kindness, and I hope your day treats you as good as you look.